Welcome to the Heroic Minds podcast, where we uncover the heroic stories of individuals battling through adversity and rising to the top of professional sport, business, and life. Uncovering the characteristics, the secrets, the tactics to become the hero of your own story, because it is adversity that maximizes human potential. Welcome back to the Heroic Minds podcast. On today's episode, we have Constable Tyler Marshall and police dog Chase. In this episode, I thought it'd be cool to switch things up a little bit, switch the flow of the discussion, switch the concept we discuss, and I thought police dogs are a pretty cool idea. And hearing the feedback on the episode with Smiley, I think dogs are quite a hit. So I thought this would be an interesting conversation to have, and especially from the view of someone that works face-to-face with these dogs actually in the field, and we'll hear some stories from in the field as well. So first, we start off with the general ideas of where they come from. Requirements to be a police dog. Do they know the difference between play and work? How the careers even work? Do they have different jobs, different roles within the police force? These are all things I was curious about and thought it'd be interesting to talk about. The other side is, if we think about this idea of the hero's journey, these dogs are sacrificing so much, and you'll hear in this episode the life of a police dog. They do have to avoid sometimes the joys that other dogs generally are able to have. They are separated from other dogs. They are separated from families sometimes to make sure that they're ready to work at any moment, because they are working dogs. And I find we forget that when we see a police dog. We see a police dog as the dogs that we see running through the backyard, dogs in the movies. And at the same time, they are good-looking, healthy dogs that you just want to go up to and say hi to and throw the ball with. And that's not something these dogs are able to do, and it's also not something the officer is able to do with these dogs. So it really is a sacrifice for the betterment of society and keeping people safe. Towards the end of the episode, Tyler actually takes us on a little journey and tells a story about a suspect that he had tracked down with Chase, or I guess you could say Chase tracked down, to the point where the suspect was saying, "I'll come out, but don't let that dog near me." And then everything worked out. So again, a bit of a different flow to the conversation, a little bit of a different concept. Still heroes in the work they do, both Chase and Constable Tyler Marshall. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. Before we get going, as always, remember to check out truelocal.ca. High quality meat shipped right to your doorstep. My freezer is packed with True Local meat right now, and every day, honestly, going in there is exciting because their meat is so much better than what I'm used to. And I really hope I can maintain this alignment with True Local, because I don't know if I'll be able to go back to the meat that I used to eat. It's honestly unbelievable. It's from local farmers all over Ontario. They also deliver in Alberta now, which is really exciting. And if you're listening and you want to give it a shot, the best thing really is that there's no tie to testing it out. You can get one box and never get another box again if you don't want. It's honest, it's affordable, it's fantastic. So use my discount code if you want to give it a shot. That's Heroic Minds 25, all capital letters, to get $25 off a regular size box and $10 off a personal size box. And again, if you don't like it, you just end it. Not a big deal. But if you do, you can decide on what interval you want to get the delivery, which is cool. So it's not every 30 days. It could be every month and a half, every month and a quarter. Totally up to you. So check them out, truelocal.ca. All right, here we go. I guess your journey to where you are today is where we'll start, and then we'll get into the dog side of things.
Okay, so I started the Waterloo Police in August 2005. Wanted to be a K-9 handler before I even started my career in policing. It was always something that appealed to me. Started working here, going out, training with our K-9 unit, getting to know the people in the unit, getting to know how to work with the dogs, and so on and so on. Held out for a spot as long as I could. So I was told there'd be a spot coming up. There should be a spot coming up, and I knew I had an okay chance of getting it. Like I would be in the running, so I was fine with waiting. Finally, in 2014, it sounded like there wasn't going to be a spot for a significant time. So I decided to put in for transfer to a plainclothes unit. So I started the plainclothes unit in January 2015, and about 4 or 5 weeks into that transfer, a K-9 spot came up. So I wasn't sure I was going to even put in, to be honest, and I obviously ended up putting in and started with K-9 April 2015. I started, so my plainclothes career was about 3 months.
Okay. And then when you're moving into a role like that, what is it that you can do to prepare for a job such as, working with these dogs? Did you already have, what was the training for you, or when you applied for that, was there, your background to be able to work with these dogs, or was that learned when you got hired?
Yeah, the huge majority of it's learned after you get hired. You can only learn so much until you get the leash in your hand and you're the one in control of the dog. A lot of it's watching, listening. The members of the unit at that time were really good with helping me get in there, whether it's, hiding for the dogs, laying out tracks for the dogs. But a lot of it, before you get into it, until you actually handle a dog, is kind of watching and learning. And
so now that's where you come from. Now, we met Chase today, but where did these dogs usually come from? Where do they originate?
They'll be coming from Europe. So Chase was originally from Holland. Got shipped to a kennel in the United States we use in Indiana, called Von Lick Kennels. So he was shipped there. And actually, before I was selected for the position, our former trainer, who since retired, he had Chase picked out already and waiting for the person who got the spot.
Okay. Wow, so then when he's in the kennel, he's not being trained at that point in any way?
Before, you would get a little bit of stuff, like very basic stuff, but not a lot.
Okay.
And in Europe as well, they'll have basic training enough that allows us to test them for their suitability.
Okay, and so the real training starts when they first meet their partner? Would that be considered a partnership in the view of the whole police?
Yes. Yeah, for sure it would.
And so when you get him, that's when training kicks into high gear at that point, I assume?
Yeah, that'd be right.
And from that point to when he's ready to officially be police dog and on the K-9 unit, what is that process or how long would that be?
The basic course is 16 weeks, so it's 4 months essentially, day-to-day training, and then before you can complete the course, you have to pass the certifications, and then once that happens, then you're on the road. Okay,
and so is there a test or a threshold that the dog has to get to then be able to work?
Yeah, so there's minimum standards set out. Here at this service, we follow the recommended provincial guidelines. So there's certain distance they have to be able to track, a certain size area they have to be able to search and find a person, locate articles, apprehend a suspect or individual, some basic obedience, and then some agility stuff as well.
Okay. When you say agility, what kind of stuff would they have to be able to do?
Hop a 3-foot fence. There's a broad jump, which I think is 6 feet. I'd have to look it up to make sure. They can jump a 6-foot wall. Crawl through like a tunnel, like a culvert. And then we have what's called a catwalk, so it stairs up the one side and then flat top and ramp down the bottom. They can go up and down that as well.
Oh, okay.
I think that's about it for that.
Okay. And in regards to the obedience side, I saw outside that was unbelievable, the ability for, I've only seen foster dogs in my life, so it's quite the opposite of what we're talking about here today. But that obedience, do the dogs come where they're pretty much at a point where they can do that kind of thing, or is that does that improve as time goes on? Because he would stop in the middle of his run when you told him to.
They wouldn't have any of that before we started. We trained that all into them. My opinion is you have to have absolute control over that dog so that nothing bad happens, right?
Right.
Whether it be going after somebody they shouldn't, or even worse, if they're running playing ball and the car's coming or it bounces the wrong way, you want to be able to stop them before something bad happens.
Right. And so they know the difference between play and work, or is that, because there's also a lot of, I guess, things you hear about how these police dogs work, and one of them is that, they know when they're on duty and when they're off. Is that completely accurate?
Again, my opinion of it, I don't necessarily think that. I know my dog anyway will cue in if I come out to get him to go to work. If I'm in a uniform, I can tell he's a little bit more excited. But I can take him out in civilian clothes, dressed like you are today, and he'll still work the same. Oh, okay. So I don't necessarily believe they know, it's work time or it's not work time. I just think they're trained to do what they're trained to do, and they'll do it
right
if it's work time or not.
And do they have different positions and roles, just as there are with the humans in the police force, that everyone has a different role, or there's different groupings of different people that have different tasks? Is that the same with the K-9 unit, or are they all generally?
Yeah, so right now we have 4 dogs here. All 4 are trained with a general purpose, sometimes called patrol dog or utility dog. So that's essentially the easy way to say it, is trained to find people. But then a lot of dogs will have a secondary drug, trained to find drugs and firearms or explosives. Bigger cities have cadaver dogs, search and rescue dogs. So that's all a secondary thing that they get once they're patrol dogs for so long.
So is Chase looking to?
Yes, he will be. Yeah, we all will have a secondary one eventually. Yeah.
And then did you stay with your dog through its entire career?
Yes, as long as I stay in the unit and the dog's healthy, yes.
And do you know how long roughly their average career would be if they have a full healthy career?
7 to 8 years is a good career. Okay. So they do work hard, and can be a stressful life for them. So 7 to 8 years would be a good career for a working dog.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. And I know you already touched on their abilities physically, and I saw now their ability to handle verbal cues, and really as soon as it's like a human, like they stop right on command, which in the midst of a run, which was unbelievable. On that is, when you were throwing the ball, you said he wasn't even looking for it. He was just smelling for it. And so was everything mainly they do all through scent? Like in most tasks, he's relying mainly on his scent to carry things out?
My opinion, again, is yes. Yeah, their nose is their strongest, so they'll use their nose first, and then if they can see a person or something after that, then they will use their eyes. But my belief is, and I think a lot of people's belief is, they use their nose first because it's their strongest sense they have.
Oh, okay. And even off of that, the other thing that came up when we were throwing the ball with Chase, it was that on the training side of things, your opinion is that each dog is, I guess each owner, you could say, has the ability to train in a certain way, and you don't believe that there's necessarily a right or wrong or a notebook that says each training tool does this and that. And so I guess would your opinion be on the right way or wrong way, or how you've managed to work with Chase?
Everybody thinks their own way is the right way. Right. Every dog is different, and every person that trains a dog or handles a dog thinks differently. The key is to find what works for you and your dog to make you most successful. Right. And that's not going to be the same for every dog, and that's not going to be the same for every handler. Some dogs have a higher drive, some dogs have a lower drive. So it's very, very case-by-case basis, in my opinion.
Okay. And I'd be curious about the relationship between you and Chase when it's work time. I saw how you interacted when we were just taking pictures with them, but when when the chips are down, what's the communication like? Does he know already that he has work to do, or is there consistent communication between you and the dog?
So you're asking, when I get him out to work at work, does he know?
Like if he's out looking for something or whatnot, is there, what is that approach like, I guess? And what is your role through his whole time where he has to be performing and dialed in?
There would be cues the dog would obviously pick up on, like if we're going to go search for a person, he has a tracking harness, so he's going to know it's tracking time in that sense. I like to have it that anytime I get him out of the car, we're working. So the harness is on him in the car. As soon as he hops out of the car, he's searching for something with human scent on it or a human. Getting into my role when we're searching, I keep it pretty simple. I think if I can tell he's on something, he's interested in something, I let him do the work. He pulls me around. He gets to go where he wants to go. Whereas the opposite, if we're looking for something and he doesn't have anything, I'm trying to get him into an area where I think is the highest probability that's going to make us successful in that search.
And when in a situation like that, is there ever a time where, because I've only ever seen one dog working at a time, is there ever a situation where two would work together, or there are two dogs doing one task, or because I wonder if that's like do they get distracted, or
it has happened. We wouldn't do it where we're right beside each other searching the same area. It would have to be a pretty big area that we're covering off, and one K-9 team would go off and search one area while the other one did another.
Oh, okay.
But as working right beside each other, no, we wouldn't do that.
Right. When Chase first jumped out of the car, I mean, yeah, he's a beautiful dog, but you also think, I guess, from stigma or from misunderstanding or movies, you think that this dog is set to attack or is always in an aggressive mindset. That's just how kind of Hollywood paints it.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that is the case, or would you be able to, sit down by him and he lays with you? Does he have that ability as well? And then also, how does he know if someone's a threat, or if a situation is a threat or it's not?
The first part, they are trained to apprehend people when we need them to, but at the same time, you saw the control and obedience I've established with him, right? So he's not going to come out and attack somebody because I have that obedience and control over him that, he only does that when I tell him to. So that part, if you're going to have a dog that apprehends people, you got to make sure you have that high level of control and ability to prevent that from happening.
Would he be able to also then, on the flip side, be completely off work? And could he be, a family dog where you're cuddling with him, or does it really not get to that point till maybe retirement, or does that not become a thing?
With Chase, I think he could right now. I don't let it happen because I'm of the belief that he's a working dog right now, so I want him at the best he can be. That could be the difference in finding somebody or not finding somebody, and that could even be a lost child or something, right? Like, I want to find that lost child, and if making him a pet right now as opposed to a working dog is going to interfere with that, I don't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. So I limit the interaction I have with him on days off when we're not working. He'll get his exercise and obviously gets to eat and all that stuff, but I try to be careful at the attention he gets because I want him at his best when we're at work. And to make him a pet, I'm of the belief if he thinks he's coming out of the car and he sees Ben standing there and he's going to go run up and let Ben pet me, that can't happen. In police work, we need him to be coming out of the car searching for people and doing his job. So that's my personal opinion on it. There's other handlers out there that disagree with that, but I want him the best he can be while we're working, and I think limiting his interaction with me and my family certainly helps him be ready to work.
When he's at home, then what would an average day be like when he's not working and you're at home? Is he just kind of on his own, or is it just limited interaction?
Yeah, so he lives outside. We have an outdoor kennel for him. The service supplies us with structure over the kennel to keep him warm and dry. He's got a dog house that keeps him warm as well. So I'd feed him twice a day, and then take him for exercise once a day, sometimes twice a day, depending on how long we're off and what stretch we're in on our working schedule, and then that's it.
And again, just from my experience with dogs and the dog owners I do know, is he on the fancy raw, super expensive diet, or is that not
He was for a bit. We did switch to a raw diet for a bit with him, and it wasn't related to it, but he developed an intestine problem where he wasn't absorbing his nutrients, so I had to take him off of it.
Okay.
But there are a lot of working dogs are on the raw diet.
Okay. And so I guess from what you just said, so you don't really treat or talk to Chase, I assume, ever in the way that you would talk to a family dog in the high-pitched voice like that. Would that throw him off too? I mean, I know it's a silly question, but it seems like it's an interesting approach to, and you had said initially when we first started chatting, I don't know if this relates to the past guests I've had, but if you really break it down, that's tough for anyone to have the relationships people have with dogs are immense, where people are in pain for years potentially after they lose that dog that's really a family member, and for you to put that kind of work into an animal that could, like you said, potentially save someone is unbelievable, and then the sacrifice for the dog that he doesn't even know, the same as humans. But I just think that's why I asked that question. So he doesn't really get that same, or does he? That same interaction with people where it's you grab their face and kind of squeal a little bit, and I guess that's the thing he doesn't.
He would, but it'd be when he does a good job. So that's part of the reward system with our dogs, is to be excited and happy when they do something good. So yes, we'll do the high pitched good boy. But like for no reason, no, not just to open the door and tell him he's a good boy. But if he does something like outside, like listens to me and doesn't get his ball when I tell him not to get his ball, and so on, yeah, we'll be excited and give him the praise that he wants, because they do like it, same as their dog, so they like it the same as any other dog.
Does he know when he's done a good job before you even, does he know when he's completed a task, do you think?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that progresses as your career together progresses. And I can speak because of that from finding people. He knows when he's done a good job and the person is now out of the picture and he's walking away, head up, chest puffed out, like he's the big deal right now, right? So I think, my opinion is, yeah, they know when they've done a good job, and equally if they don't listen during training, they know when they haven't done a good job.
Right.
They can they feed off the handler more than a lot of handlers think.
Oh, okay.
For body language and verbal cues are obvious, but even body language, they will know. Even
off your body language, I wondered, do they ever have fear situations with dogs? Like, I wonder if they are able to sense that I need to be more careful, or has Chase not been in a situation like that? I just wonder if these dogs are putting themselves often in situations of risk, and do you think the dogs even have an understanding of, or is there times where he shows that he's a little hesitant or feared of a situation? Yeah,
it was explained to me by somebody, when you get a dog, you don't get everything. So one dog may have to overcome being apprehensive at heights. One may not like slippery, shiny floors like you would see in a school. One may be hesitant to go into dark rooms. So there's definitely that. But then you have to train that to let the dog know that doesn't need to be a fear, right? But yeah, you don't get a dog that's perfect at everything. I don't think that dog exists in the world. So
okay, interesting.
Definitely, they have fears and apprehensions that you can see in training and real life deployments for sure.
Right. What would Chase do? Or these police dogs, I guess it's different for every dog. So what would Chase do if he had no direction? What would his response be, or what would his action be if you weren't giving him an order of any sort?
Like during a deployment, you mean?
Yeah, or even today when he was in the truck and we went to go take a photo and you let him out and say there was no guidance at all, what would his first reaction be?
Probably that it was like a break time to use the washroom. That's what he would think, and that's just from how I've trained him. That if he gets to go out and run free rein, he can go do what he wants. Whereas if he comes out with a harness or comes out with equipment on, then it's time to work.
Okay.
So he would want to run around like any other dog.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like we saw today.
Yep.
Right. If you could pick a perfect career for him, what would be that? What would that be for Chase, or what is your goal with your career and with Chase's career?
I think to find as many people as we can and be successful as we can during our career. That's our job in the police service and what the community expects from us. Like him, obviously, to stay healthy as long as he can. With like any other dogs, there's eventually going to be health problems, and but yeah, just to stay as successful as we can and be at our pinnacle, so to speak, right? Like we want to be successful and help out the police service wherever we're needed and when we're needed.
And what is the retirement process for these dogs? Are they then allowed to, I mean, when they're a certain way for so long, are they able to then take on the life of maybe a lot of the golden retrievers that I know, or do they never quite go into the...
I haven't experienced it myself yet, obviously. Hearing other stories, once they retire, they become a pet, so to speak, right? The police service will transfer ownership over to the handler, and then it becomes the handler's dog. Because right now, Chase belongs to the police service, right? So once his career is over, then they transfer ownership to me, and then he would be at home with me, and things would be different than they are now for sure.
If he does end up developing, I guess you could ask this both ways. Does he have any friends now, or would he be able to develop friends down the road when they haven't had that same interaction through growing up?
Like people friends?
Well, I guess, or people friends and K-9 friends, I guess.
We had a house dog when I first started in the unit that he was fine around. I wouldn't let them interact like purposely, like playtime or anything, but if I was letting Chase out and the other dog was there, they were fine together. People, I can only speak for Chase. He's a friendly dog, and the easiest way to say it, he'd be fine socially once he retires. Mm-hmm. But the one thing you always have to remember is that they do have the police training in them, and that's never going to go away.
Right.
So,
were there any situations that you would even be able to share where Chase had done something that was just incredible, or these things these dogs are capable of that really make, and with as much detail as you can, these are what these dogs are capable of, and this is how they're making an impact in police services around the world?
I always remember one was in like a capture in a fenced compound, a big industrial yard, I guess is the easy way to put it. Some patrol officers saw a person run into this yard that was wanted. We figured he was in the area of the compound, but weren't sure. So I was going through with Chase, and there wasn't really anything there. There was employees everywhere. We got to a back corner in the compound, and I could tell Chase was interested in something. Like he wouldn't leave it alone. And I'm thinking somebody's hiding there. And on the other side of the fence was like a ravine or a creek area. So I thought maybe the person was down there, but put flashlights down there. I don't see anything. So I'm thinking maybe he's smelling another animal. I don't know. It was fairly earlier in our career, so keep going into the yard a bit more. He starts showing more interest. We get to an area in the yard that's got stuff stacked up, probably 30, 40 feet high. And as we went by it, his nose went up in the air, and he like inhaled, like smelling, oh, the person's up there. So we get out of the area a bit and then he wants to come back right to the same area, and he does the same thing. He smells up high, and the other officer with me, I'm like, I think the person's up there. Like, how are we going to get up there? And then Chase starting to get a little more animated and running around, and I'm like, we got to get up there somehow. What are we going to do? And then you just hear the voice. The person's like, I'm up here. I'll come down. Just keep the dog back. So the person comes down and everything goes as smoothly as it can there. And we end up going back to the area where he showed interest the first time, and this is where the person climbed under the fence, and their jacket was what he could smell. We just couldn't see it, so he was smelling the coat on the other side of the fence. So that's one I always remember as being pretty neat.
Yeah.
And shows you how strong their nose is to smell a person that's 45 feet in the air or so.
Holy, that's cool. And in a situation like that, do these dogs know how to recognize if they see someone, do they recognize a weapon or a threat of some sort? Would they even be able to determine that? Or like you said, often Chase would use his nose. Would they still be able to realize that there's a tool in their hand or a weapon of some sort?
I don't think so. I've heard people say they think they can see it, and they'll go for that hand and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I necessarily believe that. If they're, apprehending that individual, I think it's just instinct for them at that point to apprehend them how they were trained.
Cool. And so how many more years do we think Chase will be a Waterloo Police? Do you call him an officer, or what do you?
K-9, I guess.
K-9?
Well, it's been 3 and a bit so far, so I hope another good 5.
Cool.
Would be a good career for him for sure.
Awesome. Well, I know you're busy, and I know Chase is busy as well, so I thank you both and wish you long, healthy, and exciting careers like the story you just shared. So thanks for everything you do, and hopefully you can thank Chase for me as well.
I will. Thank you very much.
That brings us to the end of another Heroic Minds podcast. Like I said at the start, a little bit of a different idea, different conversation, different flow to the conversation. I thought I would switch it up, make a little bit of a different idea, different concept to discuss this week. So I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have any comments, concerns, constructive criticisms, please send me an email. I'd love to chat and love to connect with the people that are listening to this podcast. The growth has been really exciting, and I encourage any type of ideas or concepts to be shared with me. I've got an open mind and trying to make this podcast the best it can be. So any ideas, I'm open. I'm Ben Finelli. This is the Heroic Minds podcast. We'll talk again soon.